Welcome to the Kevin Cook Show. And now, here's Kevin.
Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to the Kevin Cook Show. Hope you are enjoying your little visit here on this brand new episode. I thought I'd come on here today and talk about re-releases. And this is basically going to be films that I would like to see brought back to the big screen. And the reason why I'm doing this is because here lately I've noticed that there's a lot of films that are getting remade or just old films, legendary films in general, just getting a brand new release in terms of just standard 2D or their 3D, or getting 3D overhauls, I should say. And first of all, I'm going to go through a couple lists here. The first one is films that definitely do not, will not be on my list. I had to check them off immediately because these are a list of films within the past 5 years or so have been re-released in some way, shape, or form, or it's just or there's one in particular where it's just too late to do so. But we'll go ahead and start off, and this is the not on my re-release list. First one I had to check off immediately was Beauty and the Beast. It came out at the beginning of the year in a 3D release. Didn't do as what they would hope it would do as a 3D film, but nonetheless it was re-released. Next up, the Toy Story films. Now, that was because in 2009, the fall before Toy Story 3 was to be released, Disney ended up re-releasing the first two Toy Story films in 3D. And it ran for, quite a while. I think for about 2 weeks, if not a month. Next up, the Dark Knight films. One, partially the new film just came out just recently, and people, have seen it. Plus, theaters as a special engagement had played all three films, and I think they were all three in the IMAX format to be correct. Next up is Footloose. And now I don't want this one brought back because it's too late. We last summer we had the remake, and some people were up in arms about that, about they didn't really care for it, and so on and so forth. So that one I had to take off my list. Next one, the Indiana Jones films. And that one just got re-released just this past month. And where Raiders of the Lost Ark got a IMAX overhaul, and AMC did a whole thing where they did a whole special thing where they played all four films for a limited time. Next up, Titanic. Came out this spring in a 3D overhaul. So Titanic has to come off the list. The Lion King has to come off the list. Because last September, not this past, but in September 2011, it was re-released as a 3D film. Grease has to come off the list because I keep wanting to say last, but in the spring of 2011, it was released as a sing-along film. The Star Wars films, they are currently getting 3D overhauls, so that immediately has to come off the list, even though Disney had just purchased the Star Wars franchise, or Lucasfilm, I should say. They're still going ahead with the 3D re-releases of the Star Wars films. Top Gun has to come off the list as well because it is also getting a 3D release. There was talk about doing Top Gun 2, but with the sudden passing of Tony Scott, the original director, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. As well as, finally, the Jurassic Park films, which I just found out about a week ago. I may have found out about it beforehand, but Jurassic Park will be re-released in 3D as well. So that's the films that had to come off the list. Now, here is a list of films that I do want to see brought back. And I don't care if they're presented digitally. I do care if they're in 3D, because obviously a lot of these films were not released in 3D. So doggone it, what are we going to do about that 3D thing? The first one on my list that I would like to see released or re-released would be 2001: A Space Odyssey. Just to see, I've never seen it on a big screen, so I would like to see what the whole hype was about the film, because I'm watching it on DVD. I don't get it. It's just a lot of classical music and spectacular imagery. Now, that being said, I would love to see that on a big screen, because it should be on a big screen. Next up, 300. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with there, because with 300, I just enjoy the film, and it's larger than life spectacle. The Back to the Future films. Yeah, I know it got a release a couple years ago, maybe last year, in honor of its Blu-ray release, but that was a Fathom event. The one thing I forgot to mention here right off the bat was I'm not counting the Fathom events. Those are just one-night things. They're thrown into the theater for 1 to 2 nights, and then they're gone. So I don't count the Fathom events whenever they want to play a classic movie. They did it with Back to the Future, and they're going to do it with another, or they just did it with another film that's on this list. But I would like to see these films play at least 2 weeks. Not, just one night or 2 nights and then gone. Because not every theater is going to play that. Not every theater carries the Fathom events. Plus, they're extremely expensive to get into. Next up on the list would be the Charlton Heston classic, Ben-Hur. I would love to see that back on the big screen. Braveheart, again, just epic films. Chariots of Fire. Now, why you say why Chariots of Fire? Because it's just so, it's a film that, yeah, it's very long, it's very drawn out, but I would just love to see that, and just, I guess I want to experience the full cinematic portion of these films. Chariots of Fire especially, because when you watch it on DVD, it is a boring movie. I am all for, even if it is a Christian film, and it's just so long and drawn out. It's only a 2-hour and 20-minute movie, which is kind of lengthy, but it just drags itself out. Next film would be Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Again, it's like 2001. I would just love to see that, because I am a big fan of Steven Spielberg, and I would love to see that on the big screen, because at the time, it just blew people's imagination. If it wasn't for Star Wars prior, Close Encounters definitely would have done it. I mean, it's just some of the great effects done by Douglas Trumbull. I think you can't top that. I would love to see that on a big screen. It's not just meant for, your high-def TV or DVD. You got to see it on a big screen. Next up, Citizen Kane. This is the film that's dubbed by the AFI as being the greatest film of all time. Citizen Kane. So I would like to see that one on the big screen. E.T. Of course, this is the Fathom event I was recently talking about. It was only playing on Fathom for one or 2 nights, and the theater that was carrying the Fathom event is about an hour away from here. So I'm not going to go drive an hour just to go see a movie. And plus, again, the cost of the Fathom events, they're just outrageous. Next up on the list is Forrest Gump. You know, the one that Robert Zemeckis is still writing on, apparently. Ghostbusters, preferably Ghostbusters 1, definitely. It has it's just a better comedy and a better story. Ghostbusters 2, I do like, but essentially it's Ghostbusters 1 remade. But the difference being is that Ghostbusters 2, they carry the burden from the first film. They see the characters do carry a little bit of backlash. Like they talk about that and how the Ghostbusters are mistreated in Ghostbusters 2, but essentially the same thing happens again. They become popular all over again, and you see these montages. It was like, these are the montages that were rejected from the first film. Here they are in the second film, okay? But definitely the first Ghostbusters I would like to see brought back. Next up would be The Goonies. You know, this classic adventure films, or classic adventure film, I should say, and it was like, I think at the time it was kind of dubbed as Indiana Jones for kids, and it was typical Spielberg at the time, you know, an Amblin film. And it came under some controversy at the time because they thought that the kids were swearing a little too much. And I don't know how many times you can get by with a kid saying the S word, but that's how it goes. Next up would be the Gremlins films. Again, 80s Amblin, and those films are just off the wall. They may not be the best critically acclaimed films, but definitely the Gremlins films, they're both off the wall. I really enjoyed the first one. The second one I do enjoy just as much, but it does lag a little bit, and but it's an enjoyable film. It's just as fun. But in order to understand Gremlins 2, you got to watch Gremlins 1, and to understand how the rules apply to the Gremlins themselves, and why, you know, you don't do what it says not to do. And it's just that by the second film, you should know the dangers, and when the dangers occur, it goes over the top. It just, you know, when the dangers occur, you know what's going to happen, but it just goes out of control, and it's done in a big way where you have to. It just gets worse, you know. I think the next film on my list that I would like to see back on the big screen would be The Incredibles. That, and I would love to see an Incredibles sequel. Whether or not Brad Bird will do that, because he's also started to venture into live-action film, being Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. Did a fantastic job with it. But, Brad, we would like to see you go back to The Incredibles and do a sequel to that, because I think it's on a lot of people's favorite Pixar movie lists. So I think there needs to be a Pixar's, not a Pixar's, but The Incredibles 2, I think is what we need to see. Not Cars 2. I enjoyed the first Cars movie. It was even the first Cars movie. I'm sorry I'm stuttering so much tonight. I just can't talk. But even the first Cars movie was kind of a guilty pleasure. Cars 2, it just didn't, I don't know, it was just not that great. I mean, sure, I enjoy Larry the Cable Guy, but there's a point where Larry the Cable Guy gets a little old. But again, I would like to see The Incredibles 2, plus The Incredibles back on the big screen. This is the first one, you know. Even if you put that in 3D, I would not mind if the first Incredibles was in 3D, because that's a Pixar movie. It's completely computerized, so all they have to do is just open up those master files, reconvert it, you know, re-render it in 3D, because the images are already round. Just re-render it, and you know, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Next up would be the Jaws, not the Jaws, but Jaws. You know, the original 1975 Steven Spielberg classic. I would love to see that back on the big screen. And again, not as a Fathom event. I would like to see that, on the big screen. And of course, when I'm listing these films, I don't care if it's in the digital presentation. I would just love to see them on a big screen in a public place like that and just enjoying it for its movie's sake. Next up, Lawrence of Arabia. Great epic film, which I'm glad to see is finally coming out on Blu-ray. But again, it's coming out back to theaters as a Fathom event, sponsored by Turner Classic Movies. I don't want to see, again, a Fathom event. Not everybody's going to carry that. So let's bring back, let it run for like two weeks or a month. 2 weeks to a month. That's all I'm asking. Just bring these films back for 2 weeks to a month, and that way it would give me a chance to go and see them. Next up, and this one's kind of a guilty pleasure, but this one's on a lot of people's favorite movies list, be Napoleon Dynamite. Again, I would just love to go into a theater and just sit down and laugh with the general audience at those jokes, even though they're dry as all get out. I would just love to sit and watch Napoleon Dynamite on the big screen with an audience and just laughing our heads off at it. Next up would be the epic film Patton. There's just something about Patton. I would just love just the epicness of it, because Patton himself was larger than life. Even though people at the time may disagree with him, they called him old blood and guts. But you know what? Patton is larger than life, so he needs a big display on screen. Even if it's George C. Scott playing him, he needs to be on the big screen. I mean, convert it to IMAX. There you go. The film was originally shot in 70 millimeter, so let's put him on the biggest 70 millimeter film format, which is IMAX. Put it on the IMAX screen. There you got larger than life George C. Scott playing Patton. Next up would be the Planet of the Apes films. Yes, I think I would have to say all the Planet of the Apes films except the Tim Burton one. Because actually, 20th Century Fox did this back in 1975, I believe. 75 or 76. The first 5 Planet of the Apes films had come out, and so Fox was trying to capitalize on Planet of the Apes merchandise and making it, a whole franchise. So they were trying to get the most money out of it they could, and they knew that people really enjoyed these films. Now, you got to take into consideration this was before home video, and there was no home video format to be. You can maybe catch it on television, but even that was hard to come by. So, what the theater chains would do was re-release these films, but Planet of the Apes was kind of like the first franchise film, where there was multiple films based on the same subject matter, and again, this is even before Star Wars. Star Wars gets the credit for making the franchise film and marketing, when really you have to go back to the Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes is kind of where it began. But I would love to see the first 5 and the new one back on the big screen. Even though, I'm kind of bending the rules a little bit by saying I want the new one back on the big screen, but I would love to see those films back on the big screen, because those films are actually the one story. The Tim Burton one, I don't know what the heck that was. I remember going to the theater and seeing that on the screen when it originally played in 2001. I was 16, or going to be 16. No, wait a minute. I was 16. Yeah, I was 16 when that film originally played, and I remember liking it. But then I went back and watched the original films, and it just went, that movie is completely out of place. It's like, is it trying to be a remake? And they said, oh, it's not a remake. and it's not a sequel, then what the heck is it? It's like, gee whiz. Next up on my list of films I would like to see re-released to the cinema would be Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn. Hey, the new one's coming out. Why not, for a few days at least, bring out the original Red Dawn? It'll probably be a Fathom event, but again, Fathom events, those are only 1 or 2 days. I would say for like 2 weeks, let the original one play. But, this isn't going to happen. I'm just wishful thinking here, definitely. The only thing that they really did was when they remake a film, the most common thing they're going to do is bring it back out on DVD and Blu-ray, which in Red Dawn's case, that did happen. They ended up re-releasing the film on Blu-ray. The next one, I would like to see any of the good Star Trek films, which is 2, 4, 6, and First Contact, along with Abrams' Trek. I call it Abrams' Trek, but the J.J. Abrams film. I'd like to see those back on the big screen. And plus, we got Star Trek 2 coming, or the Star Trek sequel, I guess is what it's called, Edge of Darkness, coming out this summer. So I would like to see, some of the other good Star Trek movies. Wrath of Khan. Wouldn't you just love to see that back on the big screen? I think the next one would be The Wizard of Oz, classic film. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first animated feature from Walt Disney. I'd love to see that back on the big screen. This one's kind of a cheat as well. I would kind of like to see the original Tron and Tron Legacy as a double feature. I did kind of like Tron Legacy. It had its moments, but I don't think that digital Jeff Bridges' head was the best thing. Okay. But definitely the original Tron. I would love to see that back on the big screen. Tron Legacy, it has its moments. It's not great. I think the problem is with Tron Legacy, it waited too long. And when you wait too long, other things come and take its place. And with Tron, there was only a handful of people that really, really got into the fan status of Tron. And so when you wait at least 28 years from the first film, wouldn't you think that that title would just get forgotten? And so you got to reintroduce Tron to a whole brand new audience. And not every single kid's going to see, hey, there's Tron, let's go check out the DVD. Not every kid's going to say that. The only way that they're going to get the kids to do that is if their parents show them that original movie on DVD. That's the only way. Thus being, re-release the original film, then go out and do a sequel. And the next one would be any of the Lord of the Rings films. Now, last year, the Lord of the Rings films were re-released theatrically, again, as a Fathom event. As one or 2 night only Fathom event where they played the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings films, which were only seen on DVD. They were never seen on the big screen. But I would like to see in either form, the extended cut or the original theatrical cut, the Lord of the Rings films brought back on the big screen. We got The Hobbit coming out. Let's reintroduce ourselves in terms of Middle-earth by playing the original Lord of the Rings films. Now, this brings me to my closing film that I would like to see back on the big screen. Because this is one of the things that was the inspiration of me doing this little broadcast today, this little episode. Plus, there are a bunch of other films that are coming out, as I said, on my not to be re-released, because that was the list I did not want to see. It's a list I want to see, but they are already have been released, or they're in plans to do a re-release. But the reason why I wanted to do this list is because there are a string of films that are coming out that are either getting remade or getting brand new releases. Case in point, Top Gun is getting a 3D release. Titanic came out this past summer. And what else? We got Jurassic Park coming up. They're all getting re-releases and not, even 3D treatment. But I would like to see the list of the films that I just listed. I would like to see them brought back. And this last film was re-released several times, or at least twice, theatrically. What am I talking about? The Ten Commandments. Yeah, I know that it gets played every year on television during Easter or Passover if you're Jewish. I would love to see that back on the big screen. And they just brought it out on Blu-ray, a year or so ago? If not 2 years ago. It came out on Blu-ray. And I would love to see that back on the big screen, along with Lawrence of Olivia. I don't know why I keep saying that. Lawrence of Arabia and Ben-Hur. I would love to see those epic films back on the big screen. And including the Ten Commandments, because the Ten Commandments is one of my favorite films. Now, I'm going to play a re-release trailer that was released with the Ten Commandments in 1989. Now, this sets up what I'm talking about, what this trailer says. The trailer was narrated by Percy Rodriguez. He was a legendary screen actor and film trailer announcer. He also did Jaws. But just the way he does this trailer to the Ten Commandments is just awesome. It just it gets you excited. It's like it's a brand new movie. But I would love to see the Ten Commandments back on a big screen. And this trailer talks about all the films that I would like to see re-released. So I'm going to go ahead and play this entire trailer, and I'll come back with some comments. So here we go. Well, hold on. I got to click play on it, so here we go.
There was a time when the cinema was a place of spectacle and wonder, when unforgettable films played on gigantic screens that overwhelmed the imagination. Now that time has come again.
Behold his mighty hands!
Paramount Pictures proudly presents Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments.
Let my people go. Come to me no more, Moses, for you will surely die. So let it be written.
Death to the slaves!
The Ten Commandments, newly restored and presented in 70mm Super VistaVision with 6-track Dolby stereo sound.
Who shall withstand the power of God?
Relive the magic of an unforgettable motion picture event. The Ten Commandments.
See, now you know what I'm talking about. Why that just gets you excited and fired up, and that you want to see that movie. And just the way that it's done is just phenomenal. And that was the 1989 re-release trailer of the Ten Commandments. Now, the Ten Commandments was re-released twice. It was re-released first in 1966 for the film's 10th anniversary. The film's 10th anniversary, trailer, which is also on the DVD, is not that a big significant trailer. It's like, say, it's just like a minute long, I think, and it just says the baby's name is and it has this really dorky trailer announcement voice. Then in 1989, the film was re-released again, completely restored and upgraded to Dolby Stereo, which was the state of the art at the time. You did not have digital sound until 1992, at least, with Batman Returns. Batman Returns was the first Dolby digital sound presentation. Then in 1993 would come DTS with Jurassic Park. Now, again, I would love to see the Ten Commandments back on the big screen. They don't do films like that. And I loved what the announcer said at the beginning of the trailer. He said, "There was a time when the cinema was a place of spectacle and wonder, when unforgettable films played on gigantic screens that overwhelmed the imagination." So, what happened to that? Just because the film's old does not mean it's bad. So, I would love to see big films like that played on a big screen. And I think, I missed one on the list. The one I would really, one film I would really love to see back on the big screen. I forgot To Kill a Mockingbird. So shame on me. So that's this episode. It's only a half hour long. I've probably taken up too much of your time. But that's what I would like to see re-released, and the films that are coming up as re-releases. So from me to you, see you later.